When Neil was a baby, he was the busiest kid I've ever actually seen. He was constantly in motion.
I think before he could walk, he was frustrated that he couldn't run, and that's the kind of kid he was. He was very, very much a ball of energy, hard to keep up with at times.
This is Neil riding his bike. Second day. And got up last night. And here we go. Look at this guy go.
My husband built a play structure in the back of our backyard, and he'd make himself this little route of he would run the path and run right through the play structure, grab the rings, and do the ring swing backwards and run back towards the other side of the play structure.
I guess the first warning signs that there was something wrong occurred when he had his first seizure.
We noticed some issues starting when he was around 7 years old. He got sick one morning and he went limp kind of in my arms, and at that point, my husband came into the room and we got him down on the ground, and that's when he went into a full-blown grand mal seizure.
The doctor in the ER basically said, everybody gets a free seizure in life. If this happens again, you're going to need to take further steps. And sure enough, he had another one.
We also noticed some physical symptoms were happening at home that we brought up with a neurologist. It was things like his feet were starting to turn in when he would walk, and he all of a sudden would just fall at home. Where Neil used to run circles around his play structure outside and the well-worn path, the grass would grow over now because he couldn't run that path anymore. He could barely walk to the play structure. You know how they say that you never remember the last time you'll hold your child, or the last time you'll change their diaper or anything. I remember thinking that day, I don't remember what the last day was that he went out to his play structure because he couldn't make it out there anymore.
What really propelled us forward is the school had come to us and they had said that Neil does not seem to be progressing. He seems to be regressing. And so the psychologist at that point suggested that we go back to our neurologist. And we went back to Dr. Munn and we basically laid all our cards out on the table and said, this is what's going on physically with his fine and gross motor skills. This is what's going on intellectually.
The neurologist finally ran a genome sequencing test with Neil, and they took my husband's blood, my blood, and Neil's blood, and we waited for about 6 weeks, and that's when the results finally came back, and it was confirmed that it was this thing called Batten disease, and he had a version called CLN2.
They call it a white matter disease. So essentially your brain, your gray matter, produces white matter as like cellular waste. And you and I have an enzyme that flushes through our system every day, and it flushes out that white matter and it just gets absorbed by the body. Neil does not produce that enzyme. And so the white matter builds up in his brain, and as it does that, different parts of the brain atrophy and they die. So it's a very sort of gradual, slow process, but in the end it affects absolutely everything. What the ultimate diagnosis was is that we had 5 to 7 years left with Neil and that he would die.
When we were told that he had a life-limiting diagnosis, I was broken. I remember telling my husband that if Neil died, if he died, I wanted to die too, because I couldn't live without him.
Our families have been fantastic throughout this whole thing. And they encouraged us to go away for a weekend, and we went to Niagara Falls. And over that weekend at Niagara Falls, we made a commitment to each other and to Neil that we would see him through this no matter what.
We were told by the doctors at that point that there was research being done and that there were some trials in process, but we would be far-fetched to be able to actually get access to any trials because we were in Canada and the trials were being done elsewhere in the world. We did some research ourselves online about where the trials were being run, and we called them. We literally just picked up the phone and we called the number. We were turned down right away. We were at a precipice where we needed to either accept it or not. I belong to a Facebook group, and it's a family of children with Batten disease, any type of Batten disease. And I posted and said, essentially, should the FDA agree to grant access to the medication, the treatment for CLN2? Are there any families in Canada that need access? Because we are a family and we are going to need access. And I received a note on the side from another mother, and she said, Leah, contact Andrew McFadden. He's a person who might be able to help.
I was initially really skeptical. I thought, okay, what's this guy's agenda? And after meeting with him and him telling us his story and what he was able to accomplish and the families that he has helped, I realized he didn't want anything. He just wanted to help.
Essentially, he kept in touch with us throughout the coming weeks. It took many weeks, and he would give us updates as he went. Andrew was eventually able to get us into the tail end of the trial. We were actually sent down to Ohio to Nationwide Children's Hospital. That's where the base of the whole study was being run.
The first thing Neil had to undergo was surgery to put a shunt into the top of his head, goes right into his brain. And so that enzyme is then basically they access the shunt and the enzyme goes directly into his brain. The
one thing we noticed initially, he had 2 significant declines. He was walking just prior to that, and his speech was very clear. As soon as he had the brain surgery for the port access and the first treatment, those 2 things changed dramatically. He no longer can walk on his own, and his speech has become quite garbled and difficult to understand. But interestingly, that was it. That was like one quick little downfall, and since then he has plateaued. Which, to watch him from going very quickly downhill to plateauing, we've been holding our breaths and slowly letting it out because it's working.
At the end of August that year, we transferred to Sick Kids in Toronto, and he seems to have stabilized, which is for us a win. That is absolutely more than we could hope for at the very beginning of the journey.
Yeah. Neil has been on treatment now for about 1.5 years. Yeah. Neil will not likely ever regain what's been lost. But our hope continues that he will go on to live a long life. We will always be with him to help him through whatever issues he is experiencing physically and intellectually that this disease has taken out on him. We take it a day at a time. He's got a lot of challenges in front of him.
absolutely. I mean, we're probably his biggest cheerleaders in terms of just sort of trying to push him along to, integrate in school and try new things that, whether it be, wheelchair basketball or swimming, whatever it is that's going to, help him physically and mentally, be a member of our community.
I love you.
I really do hope that Health Canada approves this treatment. It's so hard looking at the other Canadian families, and we do know them. And our kids are getting the treatment and theirs aren't. And we understand how unfair that is. We want it for them, and we want it for them badly because we know how devastating this disease is.